late night tonight, but I will do. I noticed on um, the VODs that there have been a few that have sort of fallen below the 3 hour mark. So I want to try and make sure that I do a proper length stream tonight, even though it's a late start. But I'm definitely tired. I found out that Arc Raiders got a release date. I don't know if it was today, but apparently that's coming out sometime in October. My enthusiasm for it sort of dropped. It looked really, really good, and it was the first game I'd sort of followed from Embark Studios, who I think are doing some pretty interesting things. But they pulled it back, so the finals became their first release, and then apparently one of the reasons they pulled Arc Raiders back was to sort of retool it to a PvP VE extraction shooter, which I don't necessarily think would be a bad game on its own. Like I think that combination can work and in fact be very successful, but it's not what I was hoping for. I will confess, like one of the things that really I was really excited about when Arc Raiders was first announced was this idea of there being sort of a nice high quality sort of PvE style game. And so the addition of PvP sort of diminished it for me. And part of that was because, I think there was sort of some indication that there was Marathon, or at least something like Marathon coming out. So it's sort of like, the people who want that experience can do Marathon, and the people who want, a mass. Like, I guess the thing that I try and say is that I feel that if you want a good PvE multiplayer experience, basically you are looking at something like World of Warcraft, which of course has its PvP elements, and you can opt into a few different degrees of that. So you can do the one where you're playing the main game and there's the risk of PvP. Then there's the proper PvE servers. Then of course there's dedicated PvP. But for the most part, I think when you think of sort of the core experience of World of Warcraft, chances are you're thinking about the raids and you're spending more time fighting the computer than the other players. And, that's obviously a very successful and a very popular type of game. But I think it's fair to say that there's more than just role-playing game players that want to have that kind of experience. I think there's probably something to be said for a group of people, going out and overcoming a large challenge together. That's something that's actually quite appealing to me for games right now. And again, that is not at all to imply that I don't see a role for PvP. I do, obviously Battle Royale is massively successful, so that on its own. But something like Counter-Strike I think is really, really fun. It's been a while since I've played it most recently. Or even like, Team Fortress 2 is like a billion years old. Clearly these things get upgrades, but like at the very least, Counter-Strike has gone to like Global Offensive and Counter-Strike 2. Team Fortress 2 is still Team Fortress 2, with, of course, updates underneath. But again, that's a very fun, popular game. And then, you can say Overwatch if you want something a little bit more recent, although I haven't played it. So, the thing is that I could completely understand. I think over time, my preference has definitely pushed more towards sort of PvE experiences. Although I'm not entirely sure I would say that that's a strong preference. It's just I've found, possibly for its rarity, I begin to appreciate these a little bit more, and I am definitely interested in the idea of building experiences where people are coordinating, towards a larger goal. Because I think it can be done well. So yeah, with that in mind, is I can think of a lot of multiplayer games, and I can think of a lot of multiplayer games that leverage the fact that a sufficiently large player base means that you only need to worry about creating the conditions under which they compete rather than making a whole new set of challenges that people will go up against. By the way, sorry, one game I should have mentioned in this that I didn't account for was Destiny, which of course does have its PvP components, but would be a first-person shooter in which you're largely going up against challenges that are the environment. But then you have something like the Division where some of the, like, there is the Dark Zone, which is definitely a PvP section, so it's at least sort of sectioned off from the main game. But it was integrated in such a way that if you really did want sort of the full experience and you wanted to do sort of the challenges, they'd really be pushing you towards it. Which, again, is fine. I think the thing, sorry, I'm turning this into a rant about multiplayer, which isn't even in Cyberpunk. I think the one thing that really kind of turned me off of the Division 2, and this is probably just me complaining about not having friends, but what I do tend to find in these things will be that you can do very well in these when you have your little gang that you're running with. So I think you can have like 3 people in your squad in the Division 2. And of course, if you're on your own, you have very little chance. Occasionally you'll be able to do something. You'll be able to do something cool, but chances are you're not going to be able to go up against a group of 3. And I'll be honest with you, like I'm not a PvPer in the Division, so I arguably couldn't even go up against 1. But yeah, it's just, I think the thing for me is that when I find a PvP game and its kind of optimal strategy is to, outnumber an opponent, like have more friends than them, it doesn't really become that interesting to me. Whereas at the very least, if you're doing some sort of death match or something like that, you may feel salty about losing, or you may feel outmatched, which, unfortunately is just going to be, this would happen in chess too, right? But at the very least in that, you can sort of say, it's not, there weren't any conditions that sort of had foreordained your loss, or at the very least they were ones that are sort of, you can't take responsibility for the state of the world. But I don't know. I think maybe this is just an age thing where it's like I've ceased to become amused to like play a game, have a group swarm me, and then hear some like 12-year-old scream bitch down over all chat. So my playtime is adjusted to reflect my dotage. Sorry, I just want to get some coffee before I go. All right. Looks like we are already on our way to the next. Yep. So my main mission for today will be to try and finish off Dakota's missions. If I can, I might also make a little bit of progress on the, I'll call them the side quests. I won't do sort of main stuff yet, but oop, he swerved right into me, I swear. But yeah, we'll finish off the fixer missions, and the thing that's nice about that is as they emerge on the map, I can sort of deal with them one at a time as opposed to mainlining them like this. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where the evening takes me. One of the things I'll say is I'm looking forward to getting back to sort of main quest stuff, just because it does give me a little bit more to talk about in terms of some of the ideas behind the game. So, these fixer missions are fun, and some of them have neat ideas, some of them are just sort of a fun mission to do and you move on. So, like rescuing a mercenary from Militech, it's fine. it's fun enough, but it's not exactly like the Delamain mission.
Hey, did you hear about Militech's new mobile radar unit on the border?
Oh, I
Well,
remember
it's
this.
bad for smuggling, bad for the Aldecados, and definitely bad for me. I want to know what makes it tick, but I need to get my hands on it first. Snatch me that radar, and I will make sure you're well compensated. Details attached.
So I think I tried to do this one stealthily and utterly failed. So, thievery, steal a mobile radar station model P9D2161 Militech base at the Lone Star Motel. The Badlands are a fragile ecosystem where each piece has an important role to play. Change one thing and the whole circle of life starts to unwind. Militech doesn't seem to understand and set up a whole operation to cement the borders. They have a prototype mobile radar unit they use to track Aldecado transports currently moored at their latest outpost. If we get our mitts on that, the Aldecados can reverse engineer themselves a jamming signal designed to beat the new Militech toy. Once those transports are invisible again, the ecosystem will be restored to balance. Alright. Not what I meant to do, but... there we go. So I'm pretty sure I could manage going in guns blazing. I'm gonna try and at least, I don't know, gesture towards doing it right. So the big problem here is I'm going in without any security cameras or anything to sort of give me an indicator on how Okay, let's do... I can't get a BD out of that. 2 7As and a 55. Huh. No, hang on. Nah, I screwed it up. So I can try for the 7A, but I don't get the E9 afterwards. But I also don't have the 1Cs, so... hopeless. All right. Okay, let's give me everything I need. So obviously I don't feel great about having all these bodies lying around, but this is apparently closed off to me. So I have a couple of last resort options if I need, but oh crap. Well, it was worth a try. I always wondered if I could do that. Really, this was just about the loot. I figure we can drop any pretense of this being being non-violent. Looks like he wants fisticuffs. Those are always funny to see when they happen off camera. So there's something down here. Aha. I'm gonna save my power. I never knew that about them. That is such a cool touch. Didn't I?
I've got this.
You don't got this. Field Report 1. As per the order, we conducted field test of the Poidantries. Mobile radar detection of nomad activity registered 43% higher compared to previous technology we've deployed using Poindaries. We were able to detect unauthorized vehicles at a 90% success rate under favorable weather conditions. Unfortunately, the system's effectiveness drops drastically during sandstorms and solar storms. Nevertheless, even in its prototype phase, the potential in war against smuggling is substantial. Over the past month, we neutralized 17 smuggling vehicles and destroyed 23 in clashes with smugglers. Among the goods secured, some should be considered high value. The cloaking technology used by some of the vehicles has been sent to HQ for analysis. Within the same month, 2 Melitech contractors were killed, Private Miles and Private Loinberg. They died after their vehicle detonated an anti-tank mine. The bodies have already been delivered to the families. So at this point, I might as well turn it on. Let's see, 55, 55, E9. Yep. Should have seen if there was another option that would get me a BD, though. $25 for ice. Okay, so 55 BD would be best. So FF 55. Yep. Knight, thank you very much for the raid. How are you doing tonight? Okay, didn't quite want to do that, but oh, you know, starting later and later it feels, but other than that, doing well. Kind of a busy week at work, but not like, I don't know, I feel like I'm getting more done. So at least to me that feels good. And D-Pain, so you, oh god, I don't even know. I know, pretty sure the last time I saw Knight playing something, it wasn't co-op. But let me shout out both of you. Oop. Anyways, thank you both of you. Knight, I actually know Knight 97 through it is D-Pain. And they are often seen together around these parts. So they're... I'm trying to remember the name of the twins in this game where they like share the same brain. Anyways, if you've played this game, you know who I'm talking about, and if you haven't played this game, it doesn't matter. It won't make any sense anyway. They're very generous with their hosts. The funny thing is, I very rarely talk about them as streamers, and talk about them instead as men about town, conversationalists, podcast hosts. Brotato and Darkwater. I've heard of half of those. And in the company of others. My God, it's expanding. I heard somebody. Anyways, I'm always very happy to see them. Two fine gentlemen. Fun to hang out with in chat, and of course fun to hang out with inside their chats. Although, I will be the first to admit that I am not the best attendee with them. Not for lack of interest, but definitely for some odd scheduling. Fair enough. I probably should have figured that out, given how often I see the two of you together on the Fridays, but I'm not the most clever on that front. Okay, so I think the best bet for me... Well, I can probably do a distraction, but...
Understood. I'll inform his family.
Yeah, I kind of like how they're sitting beside this this wasteland. It's like, huh. Okay, works for me. Oh, just let me take him already. Anyways, I hope it was good for joint group games, and I do thank all of you for hanging out. For those of you not familiar with me, I'm sure I've already been introduced as overly chatty, and on Fridays I tend to play Cyberpunk. I do actually play other games, however, particularly among the Night and the... Well, actually, I guess Night probably would have seen me do Ace Attorney most recently. But yes, most of you will probably have seen me on Fridays, and so I play quite a bit of Cyberpunk. I actually rather like this game. I was in the rather weird position of being quite skeptical in the lead up, which I realize a lot of people like to say after the launch didn't match the hype, but it felt like a very lonely group at the time, let me say. But I did get a copy of it on release, and I actually quite liked it. Maybe to my surprise, like I could see the same issues that other people were having, but like I feel like things like having 100 pieces of sushi flying in front of Jackie's face while he eats, that's the sort of stuff that will be ironed out over time, and that, you know, the stuff that people were complaining about, I didn't really feel that strongly about, and there were some things inside of it that I actually thought were quite good. So I'm definitely not like a full-time fan of the game. There are some things that I'm kind of critical on, and I pack them away a little bit after, you know, I've said them a couple of times, so I just don't see the point in sort of harping on about it. But overall, it's like it's a solid game, and of course made even better with Phantom Liberty, which we played all the way through. I'm a sucker for a good spy story, so I was pretty much preordained to like it, but overall, like it's a solid game. I do want to get to the end. I actually haven't played the end of the main game yet, yeah, so I'm in just one of these cases where like apparently I'm just more attracted to minority opinions. So I was, you know, a little more skeptical than, I don't know if I should even say I should be, but definitely more skeptical going in. And then during the the period where this was in the doghouse, I got to enjoy. Sorry, just taking a minute to think. Oh, I screwed this up. I can still make it though. I was doing my best to sort of defend it. Urgent, please replace the filters in the mobile radar unit. The vehicle is located in the garage at the back of the building complex. Any delay in carrying out orders will be strictly punished. Loot. So let's see if I can give him the slip. Nope, we can't. This is my cyber SUV. Actually, since we've talked before this, but I have now finally been to the States. This was a while ago now, last year. But I got to learn two things. How much you all love your air conditioning. And I definitely got to appreciate how much... I mean, Canada also likes its big cars, but there's another level of that. The state of confusion. No. This is before the election. That's actually not true. That was pre and post election. Actually, I went more than once.
Fantastic job, B. Beautiful, really. My people are already tinkering with the radar. Militech is in for a little surprise. A job well done. Your payment is coming in hot.
But yeah, I don't know. The AC stuck out for me for some reason. This is also because I don't have AC at home. I could presumably get it. I've just never felt the need. Yes, I was stealing cars a bunch in this so that I could get the money to like buy cars, but I'm pretty much done with that. And it would seem to me I don't have any other options for Dakota right now. Presumably that will change as the that'll change as we progress. But let's do the Beast in Me. But yeah, I also live in like a half basement, so it's definitely like warm, but it's different from like being in a completely sweltering apartment, so. But I think like so I'm staying in a hotel too, so it would be, kind of a question in terms of where I'm at. But like I just remember going into the room and it was like it was kind of like going into a walk-in freezer. I'm like, this isn't unpleasant, but this feels excessive. But yeah, so actually to the you actually lead me to a point I should clarify. So yeah, there was the car theft that I was doing. You know, we'll just follow the recommendations. So the thefts that I was doing just so I could get a collection of cars, and then what I've been doing here is as many of the fixer jobs as I can to kind of clear them out of the way, and that way when new ones come in, man, I cannot read the map at all. When new ones come in, they're like kind of a one-off thing as opposed to having to do a bunch of, you know, a main line of fixer missions for a little while. And part of that is so that I can talk about some of the ideas behind Cyberpunk again, because, you know, stuff like the Delamain missions and that are a little more fun to talk about in terms of Cyberpunk ideas versus, you know, some of the more ordinary mercenary things. I'll actually say it was kind of fun to do Uplink just because Uplink has sort of a cyberpunkish feel to it, although definitely focused more on more focused on the. Definitely feel like this should be a little zippier. Okay. It'll tank for a little bit down here, but then it should get better. Or not. Okay, I'm going to take a quick second here, just especially because we're going to be doing a race. I don't think it would be bad to reset the game real quick. But yeah, the intention behind that was to do a few Cyberpunk games, just not even like a comprehensive list, but ones that I just thought did things in an interesting way. So Uplink was kind of fun because it has this like, I don't want to say gamification, although that's really what it is, but like it's like a movie hacking game. And I distinguish between, you know, movie hacking and real hacking just because there are definitely more games out now that really do try and lend a little bit more credibility to it. Again, most games are fun because they give you a simulation, like not a full simulation, but a like this nice entertaining like layer over it. So the Zachtronic games are a perfect example of this. If you actually read, you know, x86 assembler instructions or whatever, that's not super fun. But if you play, you know, well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't specify x86, but like if you look at like low level instructions to a computer, that doesn't really make for very stimulating reading unless you're of a certain temperament. But if you play a Zachtronics game, it's actually one of the most interesting things in the world. And, you know, I happen to really like Exapunks. Some people prefer Shenzhen.io or TIS 180. But it's fair to say that there is a level of authenticity to that is quite different from what Uplink does. And then Night Team 4 and Hacknet are definitely ones where you'll spend a little bit more time in front of a console. And I actually think there's something kind of cool about that because, you know, being able to make a game where it's interesting to do command line arguments, and not necessarily exclusively, but like where those are a big part of the game, you know, it's simple enough in terms of an interface, right? It's one of the oldest interfaces we have, but in terms of like making that entertaining is a whole other question. So Uplink's kind of fun, and I like highlighting that one just because they're actually, I think there are fewer movie hacking games out now, and a lot of them seem to have gone more along the, you know, we want to have this air of authenticity instead, which again, I happen to like too. But that was a fun one to do. And then I wanted to do a little bit of Shadowrun as well. And part of that's just to sort of contrast the few different, not just the approaches to hacking, but also it's a nice little way of reinforcing some of the ideas inside of Cyberpunk so that we can say, okay, you know, Cyberpunk 2077 decided to focus on this part, but we have, we've got a big genre with lots of possibilities, and so there's a few other ways that this could have gone. And I think there's some value in that. Anyways, we're going to call Claire and get ready to go.
Claire, hey.
Finals upon us, V. Big day's here.
Sure is. Want to meet up? I'm already here.
Yep, but listen. This will be highway driving, so we'll run a machine that runs on lightning. Your choice. Your rig or my beast?
Beast's my choice. What do you say?
We won't be sorry.
We meeting at the starting line?
That's right. Wait for me there.
Should have checked the time. leaned against the wall all day.
You're done, Samson.
Get away from me, you whack.
No remorse? Not a bit?
None whatsoever.
What's going on here?
Samson, Dickspert thinks I'm gonna let him go. You're dead. You hear me?
This your new driver? I'd get out while I could if I were you. Claire can't seem to keep her partners alive for long.
You motherfucker!
Truth is, Dean was as shit a husband as he was a driver. Head swelled lots larger than he could manage, and he paid for it. Face the facts. I didn't kill him. His ego did.
You're a waste of organic matter, Samson.
Claire, stop it. We got a race coming up, damn it.
You're done!
Fuck off.
Claire, come on. Save some steam for later.
Not to worry, sugar.
Do something for me, V?
Champagne
Yeah?
gonna give you
Come in
your
close on his
favorite
tail and
massage
stay
after-
there.
Bring some friends. We'll celebrate.
I've never played Metal Gear Solid 5, but this I feel like I have to do it.
Okay, folks. Get to the ring.
I have to do it in real time though, 15-hour stream
Smash some heads.
of cigar smoking.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Protect your arms.
Sharp bend coming!
Hold on.
I screwed this up big time.
After V!
They sort of saved me. Anyway, I really do need to catch up with Samson on this one because we're not anywhere where I wanted to be on this.
Get on his butt!
That wasn't good.
After him, thief!
So if I recall correctly, there's like a scripted crash, so I don't think I actually need to be that close behind him, but I'd rather not risk it, because I've only done this once before.
All units, suspect has evaded patrol. Do a search immediately. All units in the area, order has been restored. All units instructed to return to patrol.
Not again.
Get on his butt!
Yeah, I was gonna say, driving over top of the vehicle probably counts as close enough.
Car's damaged! He's pulling off!
Yeah.
After him, thief! Don't let him slip away! One shot!
Let's take the wind out of his sails.
Get on his butt!
How close do you want me to be?
Fuck!
Catch up to him, quick! How's life, Samson?
Claire, please don't! I didn't do anything!
You pathetic worm. Is that so?
Hey, please! Don't let her do this! Claire, I beg you! Jesus, Claire, what the fuck do you want? I didn't kill Dean!
Zip your trap!
He got himself killed, for fuck's sakes! Please let me go!
Talk your way out of this.
What's he talking about?
Doesn't matter. He's just trying to save his skin.
No, please, don't let her! I didn't kill her husband!
I said shut your hole!
Claire, wait. I want to hear him out.
What for?
What do you got to say, Samson?
Dean tried to pass me just before the finish line, but he lost control!
You rammed us!
Even so, is that against the rules? It's this kind of racing!
Is that true, Claire? Samson did what anyone would do?
It doesn't matter! The bastard killed Dean! He has to pay for it!
What do you want from me? You killed... like everyone!
Claire, it was an accident. It's racing.
I loved him. Loved him more than life itself, and now I'm supposed to let this... I'm supposed to let this shit go? That what you expect?
Yes, Claire. You'll let him go.
Ha! You're fucking kidding me.
He might be a grade A corpo shit, but he didn't murder Dean. And flatlining him won't make you feel any better.
You might be right, V,
Thank God!
but I don't give a shit.
Wait, no! Your husband wasn't the saint you think!
That's quite different from what I remember.
Let's get out of here, V, please.
Mm-hmm. All over, huh?
Guess so.
Your husband. What was he like?
I like to sleep in. And getting more and more. Scared I'll lose what's left of him.
Won't forget what matters most. How he made you feel.
Yeah.
You all right, Claire?
What? Why?
You look pretty down.
I'm not. To be honest, don't think I feel anything.
It's okay. You'll get better.
What will?
Um, everything, I guess. We'll move on.
The only place I want to go right now is my liquor cabinet.
Any desire to do it again? Team up? For a race, I mean.
No, V. In fact, not gonna race ever again.
Ever?
Ever. That was something we had. Something Dean and I shared. I just needed you to get Samson.
I think I'm gonna have to skip the ride. I normally like letting the game kind of do the ride, but we can't make any progress. I think I'm gonna have to skip. So, but yeah, that's interesting. I guess previously I must have said, do what you got to do, because I don't remember her shooting the guy.
Beast is yours.
Wait, what? You're giving me a rig?
It's not mine. It belonged to me and Dean. But since we are no more... Take care, V, and watch those turns or you'll end up wrapped around a lamppost.
I will say, obviously this isn't by design, but I do kind of like the idea that... oh, it's now completely repaired. But I do kind of like the idea that in the run where, she winds up making probably a decision that isn't the best for her long-term, long-term well-being, that sort of Beast is just completely in shambles. I find that kind of a neat unintended touch, but... yeah, we're gonna move on to the next side quest. And yeah, he's not gonna race anymore. It means never press the gas pedal again. Oh, I know this one.
Huh, interesting.
Should be off the clock by 5. They keep you on call? Shit luck.
Cap said I could leave my gun and badge if I went home to listen to my old lady go on and on about her online shopping or whatever the hell she did all day.
It's what you get for choosing the life of a public servant.
Just had to fucking rain.
Huh? What the hell you doing? Back it up! Looking to get shot? my system fast.
Freak sporting military-grade ice.
Meaning that our tech isn't. Get to it!
What in the fuck?
Hi Moo, found a strange XBD on the street. Max Tack taken down some cyber psycho under the big hollow goldfish. Then at the end of the scroll, the name David Martinez popped up. Mean anything to you? You fire up every sketch XBD you find on the street? Hey, I ain't judging. Curiosity's a hell of a thing, but still, mighty brave. But yeah, Sea Psycho attack sounds familiar, but never dug into it too deep. Pretty big mess is all I know. As for Martinez, Choom, the fuck kind of question is that? Of course the name means something to me. Santo kid like me, sprung up out of nowhere and never looked back. Was sipping drinks at the afterlife in no time. Every punk pup with a dream wanted to run in his crew. That is, till about a year ago when David kicked the hornet's nest. Why, want to join his fan club? Get his autograph on a new implant? Arasaka Counter Intel was the president of that fan club. That I know. Kept a closer eye on him than anyone. His file never touched my desk, but given their interest, it's piqued mine now. Know where to find him? Tough to say, but I'll do some digging. Let you know. All right. Well, we're not gonna wait all day on this. Behold the sun. Who did this? I think this one, there's like a couple of gangers who come up.
And tell your sister I said hi.
Of course, if I ever see her again. New job's been tough on her lately.
Some water. You got sane Rousseau?
Oof. Boss, water? You don't want something with taste? Water is for the animals. People didn't invent sugar just to drink.
You freeze up a lot?
1 second, boss. Brad? Hey, Brad! Listen, boss, you help me out? Kids on the block been up my ass lately, and you seem real tough.
Might as well, since I'm here. Lead the way.
Thanks, boss. All right, follow me. You lost your minds? Get your grubby paws off my bike!
You think we're playing around? This is a small price to pay for fucking treason.
You still can't let go of that? Shana made a choice. You should be proud of her.
Proud? That bitch sold out to a fucking corp! Now it's time for payback. Fuck you want? This ain't none of your biz. You another corporal rat?
Relax. Don't got any beef with you. For now. What happened?
Your new pal here talked his sister into taking a job at Zetatech. Bitch just leaves, doesn't even say bye. We've been running these streets ever since we were kids. Hacking street vending machines, fucking up corpos. It's what we live for.
And what? Now she's too good for us?
Have a good one, D-Pin.
Double-crossing cunt!
You listen to yourselves? And how stealing from poor folk like me gonna make things better? Shana's a grown-ass woman now. You should follow her example.
You getting back a corpse by stealing from a street vendor? Says a lot about you. Now back the fuck away from him.
Or you'll do what?
I could break your jaw, fracture your skull, shoot you. The possibilities are endless.
You care so much about a rat fucking traitor, then you can die together.
Yo, Brad, ain't that... Yo, that's the dude everyone been talking about. When they came back from the dead. You know how many gonks he's offed already? And I ain't even talking solo.
Shit, he following us?
Have they lost their damn minds? Thanks, boss.
Boo!
Not out of teaching.
Just between the two of us, you're really proud your sisters joined the Zetatech fold?
Look, I know what you're thinking. Corps are exploiting us. They're turning us into slaves. That's what people say, no? Well, guess what? They never have to worry about putting food on table. Me and Shana take whatever we can get.
She's probably running on neurostims. You not worried?
Hey, you can't have it all. And even if we did, nobody'd get off their ass and do anything.
Well, when you put it that way. Now that that's over, you okay?
Who, me? Couldn't be better. All talk and no action. Maybe they should go get a job. Fucking parasites. Well, at least Shana can focus on her job now. No one in the family ever got as high up as her. Anyway, stop by whenever you're around. I throw in a nice discount for you.
Will do, boss. Thanks.
I always kind of wondered about these. So this is a, these kinds of missions I always find kind of interesting because, you know, when you think of cyberpunk stories, sometimes these are the ones that people might think have sort of fallen, I don't know if I can say that they've fallen out of fashion, but they're maybe not the ones that we need right now, where we have, you know, lots of anti-heroes. Oh, for heaven's sake. And again, I'm not going to rant about that too much because I've gone on it a couple of times. But there's something kind of funny about the idea of playing a cyberpunk game where you're kind of going around righting all the wrongs. And of course, there's no rule saying that I had to act the way that I did in that encounter. I just generally, you know, try not to be like, I don't know, there's just something about running around a game being a complete jerk for no reason that isn't that attractive. So I think kind of the decision to insert myself in that situation kind of already meant that I wasn't going to turn around and say, oh yeah, you know, the punks that badmouth me, I'm just gonna go let them do whatever they want. You know, that strikes me as okay. I think the best I can do here. Well, maybe we can.
Not again.
This is just gonna be a big old mess.
What was that?
You know what? Boring conversation anyway.
We don't play nice with Trick.
Got it!
Come on! Give me a clear shot!
We got wounded here!
But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about a game where you're, you know, a chromed up badass walking around, doesn't care about what anybody thinks, but part of your time is sort of spent righting wrongs, which definitely can be a motivation for a character, but it's one that doesn't always sit well with the overall tone. So it's just one of those ones where, because I'm playing a game, I'm probably slightly more inclined to, you know, to behave like a nice guy. Than what you might think would be natural for, you know, for the environment. Although again, the point here isn't necessarily, like, I would definitely not want a game like this to just turn into a single note, which is, you know, big badass doing big badass thing, you know, repeated 20 times over. I'm not going to do a proper pause, but I'm just going to take a quick second to crack open the window, if you don't mind. All right, come on, seriously, it's just dreams. I don't know, I'm afraid they'll do something to you. Relax, I know what I'm doing. Nobody will suspect a thing. Just stop grabbing data from them. Please, it's too risky. Excuse me, too risky, and I need you. Shiva, stop it. You know we need the money. For you can find what I got so far here. Please, I gotta go. Meeting. Okay, be careful. All right, so we'll go to the stash and collect the goodies. How much did I make out of that? $5.20. You can just give me one more second. I'm gonna check one other thing on the other computer. Okay. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is start treating the fixer missions a little bit like these NCPD opportunities. Like, I don't feel an overwhelming need to follow up on them, but if if they're on my way, or if I want to do something on the side, it's a chance for me to follow up on that. But right now we're cleaning out the side jobs. And counter to D-Pain's point, I will not be stealing those cards. I already have I have everything and $1 million in the bank, so I think I'm at the point here where I'll definitely want hardware or I'll want some of the components for upgrades. The other thing that's funny too is I'm sitting on so many points. Like, if you look at my character, 12 attribute points, 35 perk points, and a relic point. I don't think I get any higher in terms of level and street cred, so I really should be distributing these at some point. But actually, I don't even know if I can go higher on cool. Yes, I can. Yeah, so intelligence and technical abilities where it needs to be. I could definitely max out cool if I wanted, and then I guess... I mean, I'd be compromising basically between body and reflexes at that point. So between the 7... I mean, I guess the question would be... So 9 would be the next level that I would want for... Okay, yeah, fair enough. So I guess I actually don't think I could get to... yeah, so maybe nerves of tungsten steel would be one I'd want to follow up on. Reflexes, I mean, I definitely use an assault rifle. Air dash, man. I probably should have been... Probably should have been checking these options. Yeah. I've obviously been slacking on following up on those, and apparently I get lots of cool things if I actually bothered to commit, but...
What can I get for you? Something hot, cold, coffee, liquor.
Pass on the coffee. I'll have a spunky monkey instead.
Everyone listen up! This is a fucking robbery! Mr. Slick, behind the counter? Yeah, you! Shut the fuck up! Put your hands up where I can see them. The rest of
Somebody likes being the center of attention.
What part of keeping your fucking mouth shut did you not understand? How about you go first? Hand over your wallet. Nice and easy.
Can't believe you've made it this far.
You and your shit again?
People who don't judge their competition don't last too long on the streets. I've met people like you before. They're all dead now. Know why? Because none of them could get the spec on me.
Nice try. You're bluffing. Trying to trip me up.
I've danced with Maelstrom and Arasaka. You think you could so much as scratch me? You'll die before you can pull that trigger. I guarantee you.
Fuck it. Let's bail.
For years, nobody touches this place, and now this? Where's 6th Street when you need them? Thank God you were here. Order whatever you want. It's on the house.
My work here is done. Yeah, so this sort of stuff I kind of like because it's a lot more time. So I also imagine this works a little bit different depending on how far you've gotten in the game. But definitely the idea, again, we've talked about this a few times. Cyberpunk being a lot about attitude. Actually, you know what? It's been a while since I've done this, so let me take a second to bring the rule book up. Okay, so I notice I only have red here. I do have the earlier one, but let me just see if I can find something. Okay, here we go. Attitude is everything. So I think this is what it is. Actually, here we go. So, as a Cyberpunk player, as a Cyberpunk role player, it's up to you to find that cause and to go to the wall with it. This is the essence of Cyberpunk, playing your character with the proper disaffected, cynical yet idealistic style. Whether you're a biker with leathered skin and metal claws, or a debutante in satin sporting the latest designer cyber optics, you're going to need a certain panache, a certain flair in portraying yourself. To achieve the essence of the 2000s, you need to master these concepts. 1. Style over substance. It doesn't matter how well you do something, as long as you look good doing it. If you're going to blow it, make sure you look like you planned it that way. Normally, clothes and looks don't matter in an adventure. In this world, having a leather armor jacket and mirror shades is a serious consideration. 2. Attitude is everything. It's truth. Think dangerous, be dangerous. Think weak, be weak. Remember, everyone in the 2000s carries lots of lethal hardware. Each character in this world is playing a role. A face that a person projects to the outside world is the real thing. They won't be impressed with your new Militech smart gun unless you swagger into the club looking like you know how to use it and are just itching for an excuse. Never walk into a room when you can stride in. Never look at someone unless you can make it your best killer look. Use your best I'm bad and you aren't smile. Don't sit around the flat or cube waiting for the next job. Go on out, hit the clubs and the hangouts. Make sure you're where the party starts. 3. Live on the edge. The edge is that nebulous zone where risk takers and high rollers go. On the edge, you'll risk your cash, your rep, even your life on something as vague as a principle or a big score. As a cyberpunk, you want to be the action, start the rebellion, light the fire, join great causes and fight for big issues. Never drive slow when you can drive fast. Throw yourself up against danger and take it head on. Never play it too safe. Stay committed to the edge. So, again, you don't need to, I don't think the key to liking Cyberpunk is, understanding the rules and where it comes from. Ideally, a good adaptation of a game is going to reflect some of those priorities and themes. There's a reasonable it's reasonable to ask why someone's adapting something. And sometimes, to be completely honest, the answer can be, this is a well-known property and we want to make a bunch of money off of it. I'm not sure that's true for Cyberpunk, by the way. It's not that it wasn't a, it's not like it was an unknown property at the time, but I think the attention that Cyberpunk got was very much the fact that CD Projekt Red was making that their game after The Witcher, as much as it was the inherent interest in the setting. Although, to be fair, it has been used as a setting for other games before, like Richard Garfield's Netrunner. And then the one that Fantasy Flight did was, they set that in their Android universe. But I don't know. I think there's some value in looking at that. So I kind of like that little side mission just because that really is one of those examples where you do let your attitude go in. So there's a certain type of person where in response to a robber coming in, the first impulse is to basically call him a pussy. That is very much in line with what was just written inside the RPG there. And to me, I like it when adaptations go there because that's sort of showing that they did the homework. That's showing that they're sort of aligned with the things that are most interesting in the setting, or at least the things that are sort of the reason presumably why somebody would play this. As opposed to, I'm just trying to think. Actually, here's a good example of this, which wasn't necessarily successful, but I really like that they did this. The John Wick adaptation. So there's world building in John Wick, and I think you can probably do something interesting with that. But I imagine the first thing people would do for a John Wick game would be some sort of action game. You can see a first-person version, you can see a third-person version, and I think it's kind of do you want to make a game where you can effortlessly do things that look cool, kind of like Assassin's Creed, in which case probably third person would work a little bit better? Or do you want to focus on sort of being the Baba Yaga, in which case, probably first person would be how you do that. But it was actually an indie studio that did the John Wick adaptation, and they made it a turn-based game. And I think there's a really smart insight behind that, which is that, as cool as you can make action look in a game, the whole thing that makes John Wick such a memorable film series is the great fight choreography. And unless you're basically going to do a succession of QuickTime events, which I think they'd be great for making the game look cool, but probably for an audience that's looking for action, they'd feel kind of disappointed about it. Really, you just kind of need to acknowledge that it's choreography. And so what you do is you give people the time to think of the really cool things that you can do, and then the reward at the end is watching it all play out. So a similar setup incidentally works for Phantom Brigade, which is entirely about setting up plans and then making you feel the reward for watching them play out. And Frozen Synapse or Synapse I think also does a good job of that. That's obviously an older one, but I know Mode 7, I think they're a publisher now, but rather than a developer, but still some good stuff there. But yeah, so with that in mind, right, like I like stuff like the John Wick adaptation really works for me because it's impossible to look at something like that and say, they didn't think long and hard about what makes that, that property work. And especially when we're at a time where almost everything feels like an adaptation or a remake, I think there's a lot of value in sort of reward, like rather than sort of saying, okay, we're gonna, I'm gonna be mad about remakes and sequels and adaptations, which I don't really think is the right way. I get why people are sick of them, but I don't think that's maybe the right way of responding, because I like Slow Horses. Slow Horses is a TV adaptation of a book series. I really like the TV adaptation. I've been watching a few episodes of House. It's at the very least a spiritual successor in some ways to Sherlock Holmes, and they include a lot of little details. So the drug, and I think I said it was opium. It was cocaine that Sherlock Holmes used. But even the things that, like, in Watson talks about Holmes's capabilities, and one of the things he points out is that he seems to have this prodigious knowledge of like sentimental novels, like just trashy fiction. And House throughout the series is hiding in the clinic watching his doctor's soap opera. It's funny in the series, but for those of you that do like Sherlock Holmes, that's a tip of the hat to people who see what's going on. So all that sort of stuff. And actually, I'll say the BBC adaptation, Sherlock, with Benedict Cumberbatch, that's full of stuff where if you've read the stories, it definitely leaves little Easter eggs for you to find there. So those are, I think, wonderful examples, and I think those are things worth rewarding. So to me, I like it, again, in the case of Cyberpunk, I like it when they sort of come back to those rules in the early parts of the rule book, and they sort of remind you what this setting in this game is about. And again, CD Projekt Red can do their own thing. Not everything has to be a faithful adaptation to the letter, but I definitely like it when the games that I play definitely indicate that they made sort of they considered what they were working with before they started adapting. And I think that's kind of the way that we can get the best of both worlds, where we will see more adaptations just because it costs more to make this stuff, and adaptations can be less risky than original ideas, as much as I hate to admit that. But recognizing sort of why we love these stories and why we think they're interesting, can be sort of the way that we wind up with stuff which is kind of worth the name. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of time to clear out the duplicates. At this point, I'm going to have to start making the requirement ++, but not quite there for everything. This one had the 3 slots. Oh, I didn't even think of the melee weapons. I don't think there's too many duplicates. Okay, baseball bat, hammer, crowbar, alpha, gamma, Murphy's Law, steel pipe, tire iron, katana. Yep. So another thing that's worth noting out of this is that some games that kind of have the libertarian theme park style, it can sometimes feel a little inappropriate. But in the case of Cyberpunk, which to a certain extent has the satirical elements to it, this idea that I don't know, like there's kind of these ideas of sort of fame, making a name for yourself, and these, you know, really, really extreme lengths that these that all these characters will go to do these things. I think that actually fits quite well. So I can understand from the perspective of a gamer why you sort of want the libertarian theme park approach, but it does make for some odd matches in terms of certain topics. So this is not necessarily my observation, but I've heard a couple of people talk about how you compare post-apocalyptic settings, right? So, you know, whether it's zombie apocalypse after a, you know, Third World War, whatever you want to take, when they kind of point out that when there's like an American team behind it, you know, there's no rules, and, you know, you're the toughest character in the place, so you basically get to do whatever you want. And then if you compare it to a European team, you know, so something like Metro, the sorts of places where, you know, wars have been fought, and maybe, I mean, now we'd say that these would be within living memory. But these environments have a very, very different perspective on the post-apocalyptic environments. They are not necessarily theme parks. And again, the point, sorry, I keep saying again, but I'm kind of repeating points from earlier streams. It's not to say that people can't tell these stories. Like a really good example of the theme park form working is Grand Theft Auto Online. But then again, Grand Theft Auto Online is a satire, and I don't think actually I've run into people who don't think it's a satire, and fair enough, you know, they can continue to believe that. But there is a choice being made, and there's kind of a set of values at play. And I think sometimes some of the most interesting stories, like I don't think anybody says that Metro isn't an interesting series. You can often wind up with much more interesting stories and much more interesting games as a result of those, considering those items. I've been realizing this too. I'll do the meditation moment in a little bit, but I've been realizing this because as a writing group that I'm part of, and we've been doing this hot potato exercise, I'm not really sure I'm doing the best at it, but it has been kind of interesting to wind up in situations where there are choices being made in stories that I don't necessarily agree with, but I need to write through them. So there's a lot of interest in sort of urban fantasy, I notice, in with the group. And I don't dislike it, but it's sort of my reaction to it is sometimes a little bit like William Gibson's complaint about Shadowrun, which is like, did you really just take my cyberpunk setting and add like elves and orcs to it? Like, come on, guys. I happen to like Shadowrun, so like I don't like fully agree with the criticism, but I kind of get it, right? And one of the things for me that I noticed was that, so the way this hot potato exercise works is that there's 6 phases. Each person writes 500 words, and like for this one, the prompt was the first phase. The person who starts writing has to include a lie, and of course, this gives you some fun because ideally, like to me, I think the fun part of this exercise would be you take. You look at the start of the story, and then even if you're in like phase 6, you try and identify something that could be the lie that wasn't necessarily obviously the lie. I always think that's kind of a fun way of doing the story, because otherwise it's just like you have some constraint of like I have a lie at the start because I have to. But what I noticed was that because it's only 3,000 words, right? 500 words each phase, 6 phases, you definitely need to have sort of an economy of words to tell an interesting story. And I think the one that I most recently had, so a third of it was sort of spent to establishing this world with, big secret societies and some people who have magic and other people who don't. And it just kind of occurred to me, it's like, at least in the first phase, someone introduced a character with something that they wanted. They had a brother that I think was... Actually, I think maybe the second phase it introduced that the brother was more magically attuned or something like that. But and it seemed to have a kind of a detective, hard-boiled detective vibe because the main character was a journalist. But the second phase, almost the entire 500 words was spent sort of on world building. And it sort of occurred to me just as an exercise, I'm like, this is 1/6 of the story here. I want to know a lot more about this guy who's looking for his brother than, what the Black Palm is or something. And I guess my little contribution on it was that I decided that, so I had to, I could have felt that I needed to get the story moving. I needed to try and get closer to fulfilling the goals, but I also appreciated that the best I could do would be to set up the conditions for an interesting resolution. So there were, I think, 3 or 4 different characters that had been introduced in the first part, sort of a literal deal with the devil. And there's a few things that I kind of thought of. So, you think of magic and secret societies, and I had hoods, and I'm like, well, you could do hoodies. And I'm like, well, why did I think of hoodies? And I was like, well, if you think of... So the thing for me with a lot of these urban fantasy stories, and again, this is totally beside the point of Cyberpunk at this point, but I'll just try and resolve the point, bring it back to the initial, and then get on with the meditation. I always kind of imagine magic should mean something in these stories, right? It's not just like people get cool powers or, I want to tell a story about someone, but I don't think you'll be interested, so now magic is real, or, aliens have arrived, or whatever. Like, I like science fiction, I like fantasy, In fact, a lot of the stuff I've been reading lately has been science fiction, but I've always felt that the science fiction is in service to some point, right? If you're in a world where time runs backwards, that's saying something, right? It's like Benjamin Button. If you live in a world where crime can be predicted, you're saying something. And in fact, that kind of story takes a certain relevance in a world of big data analytics versus when Minority Report was written. And Minority Report meant something at that time too. So with that one, I sort of said, it's like, okay, so what does magic mean? And I sort of thought, well, it's a story about there's the brother, he's looking for it, the brother's journalist. And they kind of introduced, they talked about typewriters rather than computers. So there's a little bit of a contrast. And I thought, okay, well, there's a few things that I can play around with here, right? So you have hooded figures. And I'm like, well, what if I go with hoodies? And I think one of the reasons I liked hoodies was I said, we can kind of say that magic is almost, the tech sector, right? So you've got two brothers, maybe a little bit of a rivalry. One of them is inclined towards getting a Silicon Valley style job, and the other brother is sort of left in the legacy media. And where maybe the one brother wants to be found, maybe the other one is actually enjoying their life among the elect. And the fair thing to say here, right, is that, in this world, magic is powerful and hard to understand. Only some people have the ability for it. And you can say the exact same thing about, the tech sector, right? It's one with a very large concentration of wealth and power. And again, the effort here is not to make some kind of grand statement or whatever, but I do sometimes find it's helpful to sort of motivate the characters and their wants to things that can be relatable. And I definitely find, so some of the conflict that this allowed was, of course, the idea that the brother doesn't necessarily want to be found. But because there's magic in the world, I also was able to have, the idea of the obscura, the spell or the artifact that will make it so that you can't identify the person that you're talking with. And so there were a few different people that the journalist could be talking to. But mainly the thing that I sort of realized is that I've gained a better understanding of what works for me and what doesn't in terms of certain types of stories. And even on stories where I sort of realize that they're not necessarily trying to make a point other than spin a good yarn, which is, completely fine. But I think the thing for me is that spinning a good yarn does require the plot to advance and not necessarily to spend time establishing this world building that, you either have a 3,000 word essay on this world that you're going to tell a story in at some future point, or you tell a story in this world and, those magical elements have to mean something. They serve a purpose. In that case, there were those efforts to try and stay true to the stuff that was present in the story already, while also trying to put it on the right track, right? Put those elements in and with which the later writers will be able to resolve an interesting story. And again, this just relates to the cyberpunk stuff in terms of saying that when you take the time to think about this stuff, you often wind up with a more interesting story than if you just say, I'm going to play to the genre conventions. So it's it's a cyberpunk game, so you have to have mirror shades. It's like, you can have the mirror shades, but why do you have the mirror shades? In the case of Cyberpunk 2020, it's because it knows, well, there's a punk attitude, there's, it's kind of funny, to a certain extent, these attitudes communicate that you do sort of care what other people think, but you...
Too many agents of chaos, overwhelmed by discontent.
You again.
Just gonna have a moment of consideration here. But you don't. It's not a like me kind of. I guess it's kind of like that stereotype of look for the biggest guy in the prison yard and start a fight with them to show that you're tough, is sort of what the purpose of style has here. Sorry, there was a point that I was trying to make on... Oh, yeah. So the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting when I read the attitude part, I sort of said, you can see this reflection almost in the way that some people talk about cryptocurrency, particularly the meme coins, right? If you've read, I think it's Zeke Faw's Number Go Up, much better book than the Michael Lewis Going Infinite book. I think Zeke Faw is a Bloomberg writer. But he has these examples where, like, a lot of his subjects sort of say, I don't know if they're not going to talk to him, but it's like, you're never going to understand this until you've, like, lost real money on this sort of thing. Like, buy an ape, you know, lose all your money. It's part of the movement. This is definitely an example of people who are taking it to the limit, right? And, like, a ton of this TikTok finance, meme stock stuff, that's taking it to the limit. Now, the catch is, the reason why I don't find that cyberpunk is that these are a bunch of people following the leader, right? These are a bunch of people getting swept up in a mania, or it's also like when you hear conspiracy theorists talk, where, you know, it's a group full of people talking, you know, the exact same way about how they're all independent thinkers. It doesn't work that way. But you can sort of see those extremes, and you can almost imagine, it's like, if you disentangle the groupthink, if you disentangle the meme part, you take those attitudes, but you put them towards some principle, right? Claire's pursuit of revenge, for better or worse, right? Claire isn't necessarily better off at the end of the Beast in Me, or, you know, Johnny's sort of fight against the corporations. You take that level of obsessiveness and that willingness to just sort of potentially bankrupt yourself on this one big shot, or, you know, Jackie trying to, you know, to get his big entrance to the big leagues in the opening mission. That definitely, to me, sort of is the mapping that I make to the cyberpunk setting. And then again, if you want to make it a science fiction setting, what you do is, you know, you look at the crypto people, you look at all of those examples, because all of this stuff was inspired by something that, in the case of Cyberpunk 2020, Mike Pondsmith saw. In the case of Neuromancer, you know, William Gibson. This stuff is all inspired by things that they saw and stuff that they read and experiences that they had. And then they were able to wrap that all up in this point that they wanted to make. And just this interesting, like, again, I really want to be clear, like, sometimes just writing something cool is the point. But of course, a lot of this stuff is memorable because it's more than just a succession of really cool things in order. It's there's usually a little bit of a heart or an engine to it. And of course, now we're at the point where, because it's a well-established setting, people people have these expectations about what the genre will contain, and so as a result, either subverting those expectations or taking them in a different direction can sometimes give you an indication in terms of what the storyteller is, where they're trying to take you on that particular story. Anyways, hopefully that.
Enjoy our first meditation.
Where'd you vanish to?
Someone else needed me.
Yeah, I felt good as new after.
Deep contemplation must be regular in order to yield results. One drop of rain shall not quench your thirst. Would you like to try again?
Well, how much for another one?
That is for you to decide.
Should be enough.
Good. I will watch over you during the meditation. This is a meditation of the water element. We are in the forest. Before us is a waterfall. Spirit of water, I send you greetings. 80% of our flesh and blood is made of you. Oh, what a mystery you are, Spirit of water. One moment you are liquid, the next you are ice, another you are snow, vapor, fog. 1 minute you heal, the next you drown. Wash me of sickness, pain, the impurity of my body and soul, the negative energy of negative people, worlds, and dimensions. Give me youth, wisdom, knowledge, health, strength, joy, happiness, and lasting inner peace. We draw the spirit of water into ourselves. Together, we are one body. We are water. We are the ones who flow over the waterfall's edge. We thank you, Spirit of Water, with our mind, body, and soul. There is no life without you. We honor the beauty hidden within you and the other elements.
Gone. Just like last time.
I wonder if they deliberately set you up with rain after the water meditation. I think this is the next meditation, so I'm going to leave that aside. Oh, Spirit of Water, we thank you. Hey V, sorry I got you mixed up in all this. Don't worry, Claire, you gave me a chance to walk away. I knew what I was signing up for. I don't know, maybe I'm starting to feel guilty. It's dumb. It's time to forget about the past and move on, Claire. I know, Dean would have wanted me to move on instead of just dwelling on the past. Again, thank you for everything, V. Take care, Claire. Alright, as much as I like Beast, I am gonna switch back to the ideal car for a rainy day. Darn right I'm the kind of person who drives half a kilometer. Maniac!
Listen to that guy. How'd you rate his chops?
Pathetic. Can barely hold the thing. I ain't a musician, but even I can tell that's sloppy stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, a critic. Chill, Chumba. Ain't half bad. Guy's hurt, got something he can't take, and it shows. Could stand a little more stage presence. Fingering's all wrong, loses the tempo more than he keeps it, but not bad.
You really know how to give a guy a compliment. Is that how you got your start? Street busker with big dreams?
Don't make me laugh. No time for playing my way to the top. Was too busy shaking the world awake.
Being at the top can be worth it. You want to shake the world, you know. Oh, world's gotta feel you first.
And you pay for it. You spend your lyrics laying waste to the big record corps. Who's gonna sign you then? But give up your ideals, and no amount of eddies can buy them back.
All right, princess. At least you played some gigs. Saw those memories of yours.
True. Played where we could. Parks, old factories, underground clubs. Had an audience from the start. Some recorded our stuff, didn't even know who we were.
So, you're saying some old samurai bootlegs are still floating around town? Ooh, I smell heads.
No idea you were such a materialist. Could almost cry. Almost.
Jokes aside, you think those tapes still exist? After all these years?
You know, Rainbow Cadenza's not far from here. Club we played till the band fell apart. Great spot. Place for people with their heads on straight. Maybe they'll know something.
I think there's a noodle shop there instead. I seem to remember kind of liking this one.
Johnny? Pretty sure they turned your great spot into a slurp shop.
Mindless fucking consumerism wins the day again.
Going for the other team, huh?
Huh. This is why you don't bring back fallen warriors. Sooner or later, they're gonna see everything they fought for is turned to shit.
Don't make trouble.
Hey, Rainbow Cadenza mean anything to you?
Oh no, another one. Aren't you too young for this?
To what now?
Every day, some sad grandpa in his old leather comes in here, asks where is his old Rainbow Club. And I'm like a broken record. Tell all of them the Corp brought them out 20 years ago. I should put up a sign.
Know anything about any bootlegs from the Rainbow Cadenza days? Like, say, I don't know, samurai stuff?
Samurai. Oh, that ugly red face on black? Yeah, even I know that one. Old guy comes by here sometimes wearing their shirt. Spends the whole time yakking with his psychofan friends.
Wouldn't happen to know where I could find him.
You can find him living back in the 2020s. But besides that, he's out there at the market.
Meaning he does his shopping there.
I mean, you can do yours at his spot, assuming you'd even want to. He sells ancient, dusty tapes of ancient, dusty indie bands. No one's heard of a single one of them.
Green, thanks.
Hey.
Hey, I'm looking for some good tunes. Got any laser pop? Something from Us Cracks?
Don't sell no scop here. You either want good music or rainbow bright shite.
Chill, Chum. It's just a joke.
Laser pop. Fucking laser pop. Here, at my stand.
I heard I can get some decent tunes here.
What you mean by decent? We got Cartesian Duelist, Uridine stuff, Tainted Overlord.
Any samurai?
Kid, you even gotta ask? never fade away. Dancing with my axe, chipping in, you name it, we got it. Silverhand was the one true messiah of rock. I'd hand them records out like candy if I could. But a guy's gotta eat.
I see I found Silverhand's biggest fan.
And proud of it. Today's bitty box rockers can't even touch him. Silverhand had something they couldn't.
A Silverhand?
He had that fire, kid. Fire! Guy shook the foundations of the corporal world. He died for his ideals.
Doesn't matter, he was also kind of a terrorist.
Blaze way down the rebel path.
I'm looking for the real deal. Like, say, bootlegs from Samurai's first gigs.
Oh, fuck. First, you have got no idea what you're asking for. Not if you're so chilled about it. Don't know how you found out about them bootlegs, but forget it. Not gonna give them to the first gonk off the street.
Would the first gonk off the street know what they tell new Arasaka suits?
I'm waiting for a friend.
They say, if a collar in training doesn't make deadline, the ghost of a man split in two will get him. Of course, nobody remembers the ghost is Johnny.
All right. I'm impressed. Getting someone from Saka to tell you that. You're not joking. You're really a Silverhand fan.
When the other kids were learning chrome crayons, I already had chipping in down by heart.
Well said, kid. Getting a little misty-eyed. You're all right. Hey, anyways, gotta educate the youth. Maybe you'll find something special under the table. Go on, have at it.
Samurai concert recording, miscellaneous, worth a small fortune. Our other options for music: vinyl record, perfect gift for the music lover or the poser. Heavily scratched, but not by a record player needle. And an antique of a bygone era, but there's still no substitute for the sound from authentic vinyl. I'll mention a fun little anecdote, fun for me at least. So there's a bit of an audiophile at the place where I work. And I've never been one, so I'm in this tough spot where I recognize what audiophiles like. I might buy these. Why not? So I kind of recognize what audiophiles like and are looking for, but the best example I can give of this would be the existence of Beats by Dre, or just Beats now, owned by Apple. Now, I could not think of a brand that is probably more hated by audiophiles. And yet it's a very successful consumer brand, and it's not just because, I mean, clearly there's a certain cultural, weight to them. It's not a mistake that there were so many, like sports teams that effectively, I say sports teams, like it's the players obviously that did it, but like when you have an entire basketball team wearing these headphones, you're gonna sell some headphones. But before all of that, I think the thing that's kind of funny about this, and this is why I always laugh whenever I hear stuff about like quote unquote core gamers or whatever, is that very often what the super fans want is completely independent of what sells or what sort of the mass market wants. And that can be a good thing or that can be a bad thing, right? Like once upon a time when Cyberpunk was first being thought of and developed, there were the famous there's more than two, but like famous competing formats, VHS and Betamax. Betamax has sort of a superior image quality, And of course, that would matter as more and more new formats come out, right? So eventually we have things like DVDs, and Blu-rays, and they're pushing the resolution and all of these other factors. But one, Sony owned Blu-ray. It was more expensive, and not least of which, because they wanted to sort of have their edge in terms of profit margins. But the lower quality and more affordable format won out and was dominant for a really long time. So, but if you're a film purist, right, you would prefer Betamax because of the superior image quality. You want something as close to that experience in the movie theater as you can get. So likewise, right, I think there's going to be audiophiles are basically going to spend considerable amounts of money, even still today, to try and achieve something that is, exactly like it's almost like this purity in terms of the transmission of the sound, right? There was a sound recorded in a room, and they will spend a lot of money and they will spend a lot of time creating that perfect setup that has as few imperfections between the original sound recorded and what is played back. But of course, there's a whole discipline of sound engineering. There's a lot of work that goes into sort of preparing these records to a point that I believe there was a Nine Inch Nails record that was released in 2 different versions. And there was one which was sort of like, if you like listening to music, get this one. But if you're one of those people who goes crazy, like you've got calibrated monitors and you really want to hear the thing we were listening to in the studio, listen to this one. But if you just want to listen to some music, you probably won't like this one and it'll sound flat, right? That's the difference between the audiophile and the music enjoyer. And this has nothing to do with, whoever doesn't like music. I always find it really funny whenever I'm talking with people. I think everybody has at least one friend like this, where they're like, they feel like not only are they really into music, but music just means so much to them in a way that normal people just don't understand. It's like ridiculous. Like this is why people like music, right? Because it does feel very special, and maybe it's like the only one for you. And yet, the fact of the matter is that Taylor Swift makes millions of people, feel like she's communicating just to them, and that song means something special to them. The idea that you somehow individually, uniquely experience music in a way that is more intense than everyone else is an illusion that will sell a whole lot of records. But it makes you a little intolerable to talk to if you go on about it too much. So, but yeah, so it's one of these things where you can love music very intensely, and you can become someone who is completely obsessed with sort of the transmission of sound. And the same way that some people get really into photography and they spend tons of money on that. Some people really get into computers and they spend tons of money on that. There's a lot of different ways where if once you reach a certain level of income, you'll spend a completely irrational amount of money on something you really love. But likewise, you can be someone who, for the longest time, I would be using, just good old fashioned wired headphones, the cheapest thing I could get off of the rack. Because honestly, there is just some music where it does not matter how good the headphones you're listening to. You just want to hear that song, and the song is enough. Although now that I have a slightly better pair of headphones, man, I really like listening to some favorite songs through those headphones. So again, like you don't need to the division of people who love music and like love music in a way where it crosses genres and they really get in deep on certain songs. I wouldn't say as orthogonal, but definitely there's not a close relation to whether or not you're going to be an audiophile or not. God, I completely lost the plot in terms of where I was going with this. It's about the samurai tapes. Oh yeah. So now I remember. So I kind of like the little I kind of like the bit where you show your cred to the guy at the stand, because it's funny, like there's a lot of things that I could bond with this coworker on, and they're definitely an audiophile. So again, I'm in this tough spot where I fully recognize that Beats is essentially premised on the idea that the mass market wants something that sounds awesome, and sounding awesome is completely independent of what audiophiles want. And so when I say stuff like that, it's very, very frustrating to audiophiles. But again, I'm making sort of a positive statement, not a normative statement, right? So I'm not saying that audiophiles are delusional. I'm just merely making an observation in terms of what sort of the revealed preferences are. So, you'd think that this would be a flashpoint with his coworker, because like when they were in college, they did, they did the student radio stuff. They definitely have they have a big vinyl collection. But the funny thing, the weirdest thing in terms of bonding that we had was that once upon a time when I was working on a project, there was, I think she's an AD or something like that. Anyways, European girl, definitely want to get her attention. And she had, at some point we'd got talking. I can't remember how Rammstein came up, but it did. And she made a point about Leibach being the original Rammstein and better. And of course, I want to get in good, right? So I'm going to go out and seek out Leibach, which is, I think more people know about them now because there was a John Oliver bit about it, but it's basically this like Slovenian art project. Like it's music, but like it's definitely very avant-garde and weird. It's actually quite a good album. They have done their own version of The Sound of Music, which they performed in North Korea. But they've also done, some pretty rocky stuff. Like it's not a mistake that people will say that it was influential on Rammstein. I don't think there's been like an acknowledgement in terms of the influence of Leibach, but I would not be surprised at all to find that it was an influence. But I think it's fair to say that if you like Rammstein and you go and listen to a Leibach album, you may be very weirded out by what you hear. But, I was listening. Some of the stuff I found a little difficult to get into until I appreciated that some of these are actually reinterpretations of what were very popular songs at the time, but they sort of have this very militaristic approach. So you've got this completely, joyful Life is Life song, which now becomes this like totalitarian military march. And as soon as I registered that, I'm like, okay, there's something really interesting getting into here. So anyways, this fact became apparent when I'd realized I was in some like 0.5 percentile or something, some like ridiculously high number on my Apple Music year review for like Leibach listening. And my coworker was very impressed with this because, like, as far as he was concerned, like, I think he was the only person who'd ever like knew about Leibach. So when he finds out that his coworker is really into this project, I sort of identified myself as someone mad, bad, and interesting to know. Now this guy, can talk me under the table in terms of like, obscure bands or off the beaten track stuff. Like I think I can probably come up with a couple of weird bands or interesting cuts to to hold my own in a conversation like that. But I don't find a lot of value in that. Obviously, being able to share a love of music is probably the more valuable thing out of that. But it's funny how I kind of unintentionally walked into a little bit of showing off to a certain extent, like there is inside of that scene. But it's also like it is a neat little encounter, right? Because it is a way that you can connect with someone. And in the context, this is one of the things that I sort of like in terms of establishing a certain credibility to the setting. Although, of course, Samurai, looms heavy over this story just because you've got Johnny Silverhand in your head. But to be able to sort of establish your cred with someone in a world in which Samurai is largely forgotten, by, identifying some of these things. And of course, in this case, completely BSing your way through it, right? Because I've got the corpo background, I know about the training. And presumably if I don't have the corpo training, I just rely on the knowledge that I have from Johnny Silverhand's memories. But it is kind of neat to just be able to establish, there's something fun, right, about having a science fiction game where you are dealing with nostalgia for a period of time, which, chronologically at the time that this game was released, we're just sort of getting into, but would have been the future when the setting was originally
much appreciated.
planned.
Take it. Spread the good Silverhand word. Death to corpos.
And how do you feel about this, Johnny?
You know, they say time is the best teacher. Used to think that was true. But look at that guy, 60 at least, but still living in 2020.
Guy's your biggest fan. You're not happy to meet him?
Blusaka Tower to smithereens, and it's still standing there, just the same. Don't want people getting stuck in a rut, stuck in the past. Want them to change, them and the world.
You want to force him to change. Well, you can't just blow him up like the tower.
But music's the answer? Here's what happens. Grandpa knows every damn word. Doesn't understand a single one.
You'd rather massacre a bunch of people then. And the average Janes and Joes. Maybe they don't want to change. It's their choice. You want to take that away from them?
They might be bums who play see no evil. Might be blind idiots. They need to wake the fuck up. Guess jury's still out on how.
I've referred to Strange Days a couple of times before, but I do sometimes wonder how much of this setting is inspired by hip-hop. Because there's also an interesting contrast that you can make between, I don't know, the sort of stuff that you'd see around the 90s, right? This idea of, murders being committed over these things. And, obviously there are musicians that sort of rely on this this street cred, or this either actual committing of crimes, or at the very least the implication that they are people who might have committed crimes. But I feel to a certain extent that's changed a bit, because we're at a time now when you've got the trial of Sean Combs going on, and it just kind of feels like, it definitely feels a little bit more like a Harvey Weinstein kind of thing. This very corporate, this very sort of exploitative, unseemly collection of just horrible things that happened, as opposed to something with a message or something. Well, I mean, I don't know if there was any kind of message behind it, but it's just one of these things of someone wealthy and powerful taking advantage of their situation to sort of advance their interests. I really blew this one. Good to note for future cover, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. There just doesn't really feel like when you hear about these like freak offs and stuff like that, there does not seem to be anything aspirational about it in the same way that, rightly or wrongly, there seem to be for some of these other other figures. Sorry, I'm just taking a second here to. All right. 55 FF. Heard rumblings you're searching for David Martinez's crew. Well, you found it. Name's Falco. There's something you want? Found an XBD. Don't know who scrolled it, but it mentioned Martinez. Want to get in touch, find out more. We're out of the biz, out of the spotlight. Gone dark as Scop Stand Coffee. Whatever you heard, the past is the past, and not one we aim to dig into. Now, we did rummage around some in yours, V. The merc who popped out of thin air and took Night City by storm, and given your history with Arasaka, well... You and David got more in common than you might reckon. Now, I'm sure you could track us down if you tried. That's why I gave you a knock first. My way of saying, don't bother. Our 15 minutes might be spent, but you still got some time on the clock. Left something nice for you with El Capitan. Take care and good luck out there, V. Archive Conversation, Tai Tang, and Daisuke Morita. I'm here. Bartender says Maelstrom threatened him. He didn't have a choice. They just barged in and told him to start pouring, said he had to. Yeah, well, he could have called. This is our turf. Says he couldn't. He was scared. But he wasn't scared of us. Says he didn't tell him a thing. Yeah, because he didn't. He doesn't know shit. What could he? So maybe we let him go? I mean, what else is he supposed to do? This is our fucking turf. He should have called us instead of throwing a fucking party. Beat his ass. It's the principle of the fucking thing. Probably see if I can get to Mumar if I... Yeah. Yeah, so again, I'm not... the problem about talking about any of this stuff is I'm trying not to give too sanitized and polished of a view. Like, if you look... So I'm probably not the best person to talk about hip-hop. But I do like Aphex Twin, and there's an old music video of his called Window Licker, which is definitely a send-up of those types of videos. And again, if you look at it, like these are not exactly, you know, these are not exercises in austerity, right? So there's definitely, you know, there's plenty here which would, you know, not be out of place inside of Cyberpunk. These are not, you know, high-minded statements of, you know, principle or anything like that. But again, I do think there is a difference. Like when you look at the kind of trial going on right now, the Sean Combs trial, compared to some of the other things that you might have associated with these kinds of musicians or any kind of musical star, right? There does seem to be a different there's a different coloring to it. There's sort of this there's this feeling that this isn't good, and it's not just, you know, oh, it's counterculture, or it's, you know, a point where there'd be a disagreement. Like, I guess the point of disagreement would be more about the point of disagreement would be more about, like, did he do it or not like, and it's a good thing it happened too, right? So yeah, I don't know, but it's kind of funny to see. God, I think I'm back, but man, looks like there was another big drop. I was told that there would be an improvement in terms of the connection. I'm not sure that's true. But yeah, anyways, there does seem to be something that's changed. And maybe can't quite put my finger on it, but there is just that interesting contrast, right? Because I can kind of imagine how what some of the things that might have inspired a character like Johnny Silverhand, and again, probably the Strange Days is the best example I can get of these sort of musician style figures and public, kind of this public attention. And in fairness too, like, clearly the music industry has a lot of cultural significance still, but probably you could at least see how an influencer might take that place. Now, again, a musician can be an influencer, an influencer can be a musician, but it's not, I mean, this is the sad reality of today. You don't necessarily need to have a talent to get people's attention today, or at the very least, the talent is specifically getting people's attention. So it's kind of interesting to see how time has shifted and how there may be a slightly different coloring. And again, it's kind of interesting to see Johnny deal with his, you know, kind of the limits of his influence over time. And I do sometimes wonder if that's a reflection of the shift that's happened in terms of the, like, what the rocker boy character might mean in the 2020s, as opposed to when these characters and these templates were first developed. Sounds like you found Martinez, or Martinez found you. Whatever the case, someone left you a package. I can keep an eye on it, but that's it. I ain't a fucking delivery boy. There's kind of funny that there's a car theft option on the way to the car theft guy.
You ever work for a corp?
Trying to offend me?
Let's just say I've met a few of your kind. Quick, talk a good game, always fighting for their people, for a small fee.
And?
Suits, most of them. Tell me about Santo Domingo.
A lot
lot of people tried to get a foothold here. Corpos, gangs. None of them made it. But real people live here in Arroyo and Rancho Coronado. Can't pull the wool over their eyes. We are the blood and guts of this city.
Why El Capitan?
The people, they're grateful. They show me respect because I put them first.
Wow, a true altruist.
Corpo world's at disease. Power's gotta get back in the hands of the people. And we'll do it. You'll see.
How's biz?
I don't care for the word biz. I call it work. Hard work. Honest work. And I can't complain.
I think maybe one thing I didn't quite appreciate. So I know Regina was the first character that I ran into, and I appreciated the fact that she was motivated by ideals beyond just, you know, the fixer. Like, I think the thing that was kind of interesting to me about Regina was the fact that she clearly was motivated. Like, she understood the necessities of the fixer's role while simultaneously was being motivated by values just beyond sort of you know, maximizing profits. And I think maybe because I had encountered Dexter first, and I've obviously played enough Cyberpunk games that I sort of understand the fixer is, you know, I wanted to say a mercenary character, but it's not like the people who are hired by fixers aren't mercenary themselves. But yeah, I don't know, you just kind of run into a lot of these figures and sort of like, okay, you know, they're power players, they're hooking you up. I think Padre maybe has this special status because he's obviously a kind of a power broker in his part of the world. But I don't know, there's definitely something about this idea where we talked about, again, the motivations behind characters from that opening part of the Cyberpunk Red book. I like the idea of fixers that are motivated just beyond money or, you know, getting their cut. And you know, the stuff with Momar's come up before in terms of his dislike of the corpse and such. Sometimes that can come off as being in opposition to competition, somebody who will hurt your margins. But I don't know if it's this part of town or what, but it definitely feels like the performance took a hit. But the idea that these people are becoming fixers specifically to advance a certain end, or of course that people, so I think Padre is probably the better example of this, but because Momar can come off as a little bit of a clown in some ways, right? He's got a mullet and a fanny pack, and so, you know, again, that's a very specific style choice that he's made. But this idea that a lot of his power kind of comes from the fact that he is working in the interests of his people, right? It's, to a certain extent, it's almost like a politician, right? The politician has their constituents. And in some cases, like, so you'll have, this is definitely true in Canada, you'll have some who are in a safe seat, and so they're, you know that the representative, in the case of Canada, it would be, you know, Liberal, Conservative, or NDP. Sometimes Green, but for the most part, it's going to be one of those three parties, and most likely Liberal or Conservative in most cases. Sorry, I should also say Bloc if it's Quebec. And in the case of Canada, this can be a little hard because the parties do have some influence. So there can be this idea of the party's favored candidate in terms of certain safe seats. So one of the parties in Canada, well, actually more than one party, the leader lost their seat. And because the leader is sufficiently popular within the party, the idea is that one of the MPs in a safe seat will give up their seat so that the leader can stand in Parliament. But there is the idea of sort of the primary challenge, right? So in the case of the United States, this is maybe a better example. If you have someone who, doesn't meet the needs of enough constituents, then the idea is that those constituents will have their ideals represented through a primary challenge. So, presumably, this looks like Afterlife. I don't want to be here. Maybe I want to do the meditation moment then. Yeah, so the idea here would be that if you're going too far from what your constituents want, then you'll face a primary challenge, and someone who better represents those ideals will take your place. Now, this can be a bit of a challenge because we've definitely had some cases where primary challenges come from fairly extreme figures, and I mean almost by definition, the representative view would be the median, not the extreme. But one of the difficulties of politics is for certain issues, if people, it's not necessarily the representative view that takes hold, but the most motivated. So you can see this for certain lobbies. They can rely on their group to always show up and always advocate very, very strongly for their views, and if the opposing side is a bit more diffuse, or at the very least they're not as strongly motivated as the other one, then the quote unquote more extreme view would see their side carry the day. So very often gun control would be considered an example of this, where I think the median view would be in favor of stronger restrictions than currently exist. But at least historically, organizations like the NRA have been very effective in advocating for you can almost sort of see this maximalist view of what those rights should look like. And so as a result, gun control is, to some people, like weirdly difficult to implement in the States. I say this as someone who doesn't live in the States. Obviously, it's a fairly complicated issue, and there are people who can speak to U.S. political dynamics better than me. But I don't think it's an unfair statement that I've made in terms of how it works in the States and why things take the shape that they do.
Of your awareness are much clearer now. The knot in your mind is beginning to unwind. You are drowning in the here and now.
I don't know what this is all about, but I like it.
Inner harmony is like coming home from a long journey. You are on the right path.
I want to try another one.
How much would you like to pay this time?
Will this be enough?
Yes. You may begin. I will guide you.
Sorry, I'm thinking about my material possessions each time I hear one of those cars crash into it.
This is a meditation of the fire element. We are in the forest. We see rays of sunlight pierce the canopy, dancing and weaving into the tongues of flame below. Spirit of fire, spirit of the sun, I send you greetings. You give beauty to all other things. I am you, and you are me. There is no life without you. From you I was created, and to you I will return. Spirit of the sun, primordial fire, burn all impurity from my body and soul, and the negative energy of negative people, worlds, and dimensions. Cleanse every cell of my body. Give me the energy of life, health, youth, wisdom, knowledge, strength, joy, and happiness. Give me lasting inner peace, so that no one may shake me from my sacred equilibrium. Through half-closed eyes, we absorb the sun's divine energy. Through our eyes, the energy of fire, of the sun, touches our heads and flows down through every organ until it arrives at our toes. Each and every cell within our body, including the subtle and etheric, is replenished with the sun's energy. And from within us, light emerges. We are the sun. We thank you, Spirit of the Sun, element of fire with our mind, body, and soul.
Of course that would happen.
My car is nowhere to be found. All right, I'm going to take a quick look at the map. So there's Beast. All right, so I'm guessing that this would be another meditation. Trying to decide quite how I want to handle this. So I don't like the idea of doing sort of back-to-back meditations. X Factor doesn't seem to be like the, where was it? Dynamic filter. I don't know why, but I get the impression that the solid exclamation marks are sort of the main quests. I know there's a reason I think that, but oh god, I didn't even think of this one. Okay, maybe I should do full disclosure. Someone once said, no man ever steps in the same river twice. No clue who said it. Heraclitus, but he was a smart dude. Now there are lots of rivers in this world, most of them toxic, but whatever places you could explore instead of stomping over the same old grounds, and lots of joy houses. What's this one got that others don't? But yeah, I don't know. So there's a side of me that says maybe I should... So I think Sandra Dorset would be the next one. I do feel slightly inclined to do X Factor more. But following that, I could see myself doing Ghost. I think I did Ghost Town then Down on the Street. Although, weirdly enough, I seem to think at least one of the... I don't know if it's Psycho Killer or if it's one of the Fixer missions, but I'm pretty sure when I meet... I think it's Panem? Anyways, I believe that unlocks one of the things I was looking to do. But we have caught up, which is good. But yeah, I think that's going to be how I handle it. Now, if you can just give me a quick second here. I was going to take a quick trip to the bathroom. And I did kind of say that I wanted to... I did sort of say that I wanted to like do a full stream tonight, but... I kind of feel if I take a break now, I really only have 15 minutes left anyway, so I think I might actually just end it here. And part of that's because I don't have that much to do. So I think probably between full disclosure, X Factor will be a little bit longer, but I think probably full disclosure is not a bad one to start off with. And then we'll be focusing a lot of sort of main story stuff for next week's stream, and then that'll give us a chance to sort of fold in the side quests as they emerge. So we'll probably do... My rough expectation would be we do full disclosure, X Factor, Ghost Town, and then we see where we are after those. The other thing that I want to spend some time reflecting on for myself would be, do I want to fill out the rest of the cool stat? Probably. And if I do that, where do I want to put the remaining points? And then most importantly, where do I want to put those perk points? Seems like I can do a reset, but I don't really like the idea of doing that. I like the idea of sort of sticking with the stuff that I've committed to. So, and overall, I don't think I'm going to have too many sacrifices to make, but I should probably make some. I think I should make some choices before too long on where all this goes. The other thing I will just say before I wrap up is I am kind of happy that I've had a bit more to talk about. I don't know if other people are happy that I've had this stuff to talk about, but I do kind of like that because I've been moving outside of the fixer missions, that I feel like there's a little bit more substance for me to hold on to. And, you know, sometimes it'll just be relating to how some personal experiences I have. I don't know whether or not like the digression on the fact that I was able to bond with a coworker about Laibach, if that means anything to anybody else, but it's to me a nice little gateway to sort of understanding what the samurai guy was about. And to me, at least, they do a nice job of sort of grounding the game, and I hope at least that some of this stuff is, you know, inspired by similar experiences from the developers who are setting this up. It at least feels a little bit better than just sort of, you know, we have a... To me, at the very least, I like Cyberpunk because it feels at the very least that it's more than just a succession of stereotypes from other games that people have played. and that's not true just of Cyberpunk, but certainly for the types of games that I enjoy. That's one of the things that kind of keeps me coming back to them and why I enjoy some stories more than others. But I am going to wrap up. I noticed that Kilgore Trout is streaming. I know he's been on or off lately, but he is currently playing the Die Hard Trilogy 2. So I will leave you in his capable hands. My plans for the next week or so. Now, I'm going to have... there's one potentially very early morning for me next week. So my hope is to do something like Ace Attorney for Monday and Wednesday. But if I have a really early morning on Thursday, I may actually need to hold off on that stream, which means it would be better to do Uplink on the Monday. I will try and inform people of when that, if there's a change, I'll try and inform people ahead of time about what that might be. But I wanted to try and at least give people a heads up tonight. But anyways, I hope you all have a good time at Kilgore's. I will try and be back for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week. For those of you just here for Cyberpunk, that'll be Friday. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.